Once upon a time in Enugu, there lived a young woman named Ifeoma. She was gentle, soft-spoken, and full of patience. Everyone in the neighborhood knew her as the kind of wife who greeted people with respect, who never raised her voice even when she was upset, and who always put her husband first. She cooked his favorite meals, washed his clothes with her own hands, and prayed for him every night. Ifeoma believed marriage was a lifelong bond, and she gave all of herself to keep her home happy. Her husband, Obinna, was a tall, proud man with sharp eyes and a loud voice. He loved to be admired, and he loved when people called him a successful man. He had a small business that was beginning to grow, and he often told his friends that soon he would be one of the richest men in town. But Obinna had one weakness. He cared too much about what people said. He wanted to be praised at every gathering, and he hated anything that made him look weak before others. The problem in their marriage was simple but painful. After 5 years together, Ifeoma had not given birth to a child. Every year passed with no pregnancy. At first, Obinna tried to be patient. He told her, "Don't worry, our time will come." But as time went on, the whispers from family and neighbors grew louder. His mother would shake her head and say, "A man without a child has no legacy. You are wasting your years." His friends laughed at him in secret, mocking him with words like, "Obinna, are you even a real man? Where is your son?" All these words cut deep into his pride, and little by little, his love for Ifeoma began to turn into anger. One hot afternoon, Ifeoma sat at the dining table with a small plate of food waiting for her husband to return. She had cooked his favorite meal, jollof rice with fried plantain and goat meat. She wanted to surprise him, hoping that maybe food and kindness would soften his heart. But when Obinna walked in, he looked at the table and frowned. "You are cooking rice every day," he said coldly. "Rice will not give me children. Can you not see I am tired of this useless waiting?" Ifeoma froze, the spoon in her hand shaking. "Obinna, please don't talk like that. God will bless us. You know I have gone for tests. The doctor said there is nothing wrong." "Stop lying!" Obinna shouted, his hand slamming the table so hard that the plates rattled. "If there is nothing wrong, why is your womb empty? Tell me." 5 years, Ifeoma. 5 wasted years. Other men have children running around their houses, and I come home to silence. Do you know how people laugh at me? Tears filled Ifeoma's eyes. She stood and moved closer, trying to touch his arm. "Obinna, I am trying. I pray every day. It hurts me too. Please don't let other people's words destroy us." But Obinna pushed her hand away and pointed at her chest. His voice was full of bitterness. "You are the problem. You are barren. I made a mistake marrying you." Her legs trembled and her tears fell like rain. She whispered, "Obinna, how can you say that to me after everything we have shared?" Before she could continue, the front door opened. His mother, Mama Obinna, stepped inside with 2 of his relatives following her. She had been listening from outside, and she wasted no time adding fuel to the fire. "This woman has tied your destiny," Mama Obinna said with disgust. "A woman who cannot give you a child is no wife. My son, send her away before she finishes you. Other men are building their families, and you are stuck with this empty basket." The words struck Ifeoma like a knife. She fell to her knees crying, "Mama, please don't say that. I respect you. I love your son. I will not give up. I am not an empty basket. Please." But Mama Obinna hissed and waved her hand. "Shameless woman. If you truly loved him, you would not still be childless after 5 years. Pack your things and go back to your father's house." The room became tense. Obinna's relatives murmured in agreement, shaking their heads at Ifeoma as if she had committed a crime. Obinna looked at his wife, then at his mother. His face hardened. "Ifeoma," he said slowly, his tone heavy with finality, "leave my house. I am done with you. I need a real woman who can give me sons. You have failed me." Ifeoma gasped, clutching her chest as though her heart had stopped. "Obinna, you cannot mean this. After everything, after the love we shared, you will throw me out because of this?" "Yes," he shouted. "You are barren. Get out," she cried, crawling closer to him, holding his leg. "Please, Obinna, don't do this to me. Give me one more chance. I will try every treatment. I will not stop praying. Please, my husband, don't send me away. But Obinna's eyes were cold. He yanked his leg free and turned away. Pack your load before the sun goes down. The relatives nodded in approval, and Mama Obinna smirked in satisfaction. Slowly, Ifeoma stood up. Her face was wet with tears and her voice broke as she spoke. Obinna, I gave you my youth. I gave you my loyalty. I cooked for you, washed for you, prayed for you. I never once disrespected you. And this is how you repay me? By calling me barren in front of strangers? Obinna looked away, refusing to meet her eyes. With trembling hands, she gathered the small handbag she had left by the corner. She did not even carry clothes. Her heart was too heavy to think of anything else. She walked toward the door, her sobs echoing through the house she once called home. When she stepped outside, the evening sky was turning dark. The street was quiet, but her body felt weak. She stumbled as she walked, her tears blinding her. Every step felt like carrying a mountain on her back. By the time she reached the roadside, her legs could no longer carry her. A sharp pain gripped her stomach, twisting deep inside her. She tried to hold herself upright, but the pain grew stronger, like knives cutting from within. No, not now, she whispered, clutching her belly. Her vision blurred, and the world around her spun. With one last cry, Ifeoma fell to the ground on the dusty roadside. Her handbag slipped from her hand. A passerby shouted, "Somebody help! This woman has fainted!" People rushed toward her, their voices rising in panic. But Ifeoma's eyes closed, her tears drying on her cheeks as the darkness swallowed her. And that was how her journey, the journey from pain to something greater, truly began. The night was quiet when Ifeoma slowly opened her eyes. The ceiling above her was white, with a dim bulb hanging loosely. The smell of medicine filled the air. For a moment, she did not know where she was. Her body felt heavy, and her throat was dry. She tried to move, but her stomach ached. Then she heard a soft voice. "Madam, you are awake. Thank God." Turning her head slowly, she saw a nurse standing beside her bed. The nurse wore a simple blue gown, her hair tied neatly back. She smiled kindly. "You fainted on the roadside," the nurse explained. "Some people rushed you here. You were unconscious for hours. Rest, you are safe now." Ifeoma's lips trembled. She whispered, Where am I?" "You are in St. Mary's Clinic," the nurse replied gently. "We had to check you quickly. Madam, you are a strong woman. God is with you." Ifeoma's eyes filled with tears again. Images of Obinna's angry face returned to her mind. His words, like knives, cut her again and again. "You are barren. Get out of my house." She pressed her palms against her face and began to cry silently. The nurse touched her shoulder softly. "Please don't cry too much. The doctor will come soon. You need your strength." Moments later, the door opened and a middle-aged doctor entered. He was tall, with glasses resting on his nose. His white coat rustled as he walked toward her bed. He looked serious but kind. "Good evening, Madam Ifeoma," he said in a calm voice. "I am Dr. Kalu. I was the one who checked you when you came in. I have something important to tell you." Ifeoma sat up weakly, fear rising in her heart. "Doctor, am I sick? Am I dying?" The doctor pulled a chair closer and sat beside her. He shook his head slowly. "No, madam, you are not dying. In fact, it is the opposite. What I'm about to say will surprise you." Ifeoma's hands shook. She whispered, "Please tell me." Dr. Kalu gave her a small smile. "You are pregnant." The words hung in the air like thunder. Ifeoma froze. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Pregnant?" She touched her stomach slowly, as if to confirm it was true. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Pregnant?" she repeated in disbelief. "Doctor, are you sure? I thought I could never—" "Yes," the doctor interrupted gently. "We ran the tests. There is no mistake. You are not only pregnant, you are carrying triplets." "Triplets?" Ifeoma gasped, her voice shaking. She grabbed the bedsheet with trembling hands. "3 babies? In my womb? After all these years? Doctor, are you saying the truth?" The doctor nodded firmly. "It is the truth. I was surprised myself. But it is clear, Madam, you must take care of yourself. Carrying triplets will not be easy. You will need strength, patience, and good food. At that moment, Ifeoma covered her face and wept loudly. The sound filled the small room. She cried not out of sadness, but from the storm of emotions in her heart. She thought of all the nights she had knelt on the floor, begging God for just one child. She thought of the insults from her husband, the shame from her mother-in-law, the whispers from neighbors. And now when she had been cast aside and humiliated, God answered her with not one, but three. Why now, she sobbed. Why after he has thrown me away? Why after I have been disgraced before everyone? Why now, Lord? The nurse tried to comfort her. Madam, God's time is always the best. Maybe this is your story. Maybe this is how your life will change. But Ifeoma's tears flowed stronger. She could hear Obinna's voice in her head, mocking her. You are barren, useless, an empty basket. If only he knew. If only he could see the miracle inside her womb. Dr. Kalu placed a hand on her arm. Madam, listen to me. I do not know your full story, but I know one thing. These children are a gift. Protect them. No matter what anyone has said about you, no matter who left you, you must live for these babies. Ifeoma wiped her face slowly and nodded. Yes, doctor, I will protect them. I will not let anyone take them away from me. But deep inside, her heart ached. She thought of Obinna. Should she tell him? Should she return to him with this news? A part of her longed to see his face when he heard she was carrying triplets, but another part of her remembered the cruelty in his eyes when he cast her out. Could she go back to a man who despised her so easily? That night, lying in the clinic bed, she wrestled with her thoughts. Every kick of pain in her stomach reminded her that a new life was growing inside her, or rather 3 new lives. Her tears finally dried, and she whispered softly into the darkness. God, I don't know why you chose to bless me now, but I will not waste this chance. I will raise them, even if I do it alone. They will know love. They will know they are wanted. The next morning, Ifeoma was discharged from the clinic with medicine and instructions. She walked slowly out of the gate, holding the small bag the nurse had given her. Her steps were weak, but there was a new light in her eyes. The streets of the city looked different now. Cars passed, people hurried, but Ifeoma felt like the world had paused for her. She touched her belly again. For the first time in years, she felt like she was not empty. She was carrying life. But she knew the road ahead would not be easy. Obinna's rejection had left her with nothing. She had no house, no money, and no family support. She could not return to her father's house. They were poor and already burdened. She could not go back to Obinna. He had spat on her dignity. She whispered to herself, I will go far away. I will start again. My children will not grow where I was called barren. They will grow where nobody knows me. And so, with determination burning inside her, she boarded a small bus heading to a distant village. Weeks turned into months. Ifeoma lived in a tiny rented room in the village. It had a leaking roof and cracked walls. But it was hers. Every morning she went to the market to sell vegetables, earning just enough to buy Gary and beans. Her belly grew heavy, and the villagers watched her with curiosity. Is she not the woman who was sent away by her husband? They whispered. And now she is pregnant? Strange. Some mocked her, some pitied her, but Ifeoma ignored them. She kept her eyes on her small business and her hands on her belly, whispering prayers into the growing lives inside her. One evening, as she returned from the market carrying firewood on her head, an old woman stopped her. My daughter, you are strong, the woman said. Carrying firewood with a stomach like that. You must love those babies. Ifeoma smiled weakly. Yes, Mama. I love them with everything I have. The woman nodded. Then keep going. Don't mind what people say. One day they will eat their words. Those words gave Ifeoma strength. She went home, cooked her small food, and sat alone in her room. She whispered to her unborn children, You are my hope. You are my joy. I will fight for you. Back in the city, Obinna was changing too. He dressed in fine suits, moved with rich friends, and chased every chance for success. People praised him for leaving his barren wife. You did the right thing, they told him. A man like you deserves children to carry his name. Obinna nodded proudly. I will marry again soon. This time I will choose well. I cannot waste my destiny on a mistake. He laughed with his friends, not knowing that far away, the wife he had rejected was carrying the very children he had longed for. One rainy night, Ifeoma knelt on the floor of her small room, her hands on her belly. She prayed loudly, her tears mixing with the sound of the rain. Lord, please help me. These children must not die. Give me strength. Give me food to feed them. Protect me. I am alone, but you are with me. Let them live, Lord. Let them live. The thunder roared outside, but inside her heart, a fire burned. She would not give up. She would carry these children to the end. And so her journey continued. A journey of pain, but also of secret victory. For hidden inside her womb was the answer to all the insults, all the shame, all the tears. The world still called her barren, but soon the world would see. The early morning sun crept through the small crack in the roof of Ifeoma's room. She sat up slowly, her back aching, her belly heavy with the weight of 3 growing babies. Sweat covered her face even though the air was cool. She had hardly slept the night before. Every movement inside her womb felt like a battle. Sometimes she wondered how such tiny lives could carry so much strength. She sat on the mat, breathing slowly. My children, she whispered, touching her belly with both hands. You are my hope. Even if the world calls me barren, I know you are here. I will never let anyone take you from me. Her body was weak, but her will was strong. Every day she forced herself to go to the market. She would carry baskets of vegetables on her head, even though people told her she should not. Rest or you will lose those babies, they warned. But Ifeoma shook her head. If I rest, how will I eat? How will I feed them when they arrive? The villagers watched her with mixed eyes. Some admired her strength, others mocked her. Look at her, one woman whispered in the market. Her husband chased her out, yet she is still carrying babies. Maybe she went to another man. Another laughed. 3 children at once? It cannot be natural. Maybe she used charms. Maybe she wants to prove something. The words hurt, but Ifeoma kept silent. She had learned that people would always talk. She told herself, let them laugh now. When they see my children, their mouths will close. One hot afternoon, after a long day at the market, Ifeoma returned to her small room carrying a little bag of beans. Her back burned and her legs trembled under her weight. She dropped the bag by the corner and sat down, breathing heavily. Suddenly, sharp pain shot through her belly. She cried out and held herself. Her neighbor, Mama Chiniere, rushed in. Ifeoma, are you all right? I am fine, Ifeoma said, even though sweat poured from her face. It is only the babies moving. Mama Chiniere looked at her closely and shook her head. You cannot continue like this. You are carrying 3 children, not 1. You need help. Ifeoma forced a weak smile. God will help me. He has brought me this far. He will not leave me. But deep inside, she was afraid. Nights were the worst. When the world was quiet and she lay on her mat, the weight of her belly pressed on her chest. Sometimes she could hardly breathe. She would cry silently into her pillow, praying for strength. Lord, she whispered, please keep them safe. Don't let me lose them. They are all I have. The months crawled by. Ifeoma grew bigger and weaker. Her clothes no longer fit, so she wrapped herself in old wrappers. She could barely walk to the market, but she refused to stop. She believed every grain of gari, every spoon of beans, every kobo she earned was for her children's survival. One evening, as she struggled to light her small stove, she heard voices outside her window. Have you seen Ifeoma? One man said. She looks like she will break any moment. Carrying 3 children without a husband? She will not survive. Another voice laughed. Her husband chased her out for being barren. Now she suddenly has children? It is suspicious. Maybe she wants to shame him. Maybe they are not even his. Ifeoma closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks. She wanted to scream that the babies were real, that God himself had blessed her, but she kept quiet. She stirred her beans slowly, whispering, they will see. One day, they will see. When her time finally came, it was a stormy night. Rain poured heavily on the roof, leaking into her room. Ifeoma was alone, sitting on her mat, when a wave of pain hit her like fire. She screamed, clutching her belly. The pains came stronger, closer, sharper. She tried to stand, but her legs gave way. She fell back, crying, "Help me, somebody please!" Mama Chenier heard her screams and rushed in, followed by 2 other women. When they saw her on the floor, writhing in pain, their eyes widened. "It is time," Mama Chenier shouted. "Call the midwife!" Within minutes, the village midwife arrived, carrying her small bag. She knelt beside Ifeoma and touched her belly. "These babies are ready. You must be strong, my daughter." "This will not be easy." "I cannot," Ifeoma sobbed, her voice weak. "The pain is too much. I will die." "No," the midwife said firmly, holding her hand. "You will not die. You will live. For your children, you must fight. Now push when I tell you." The room filled with cries, commands, and prayers. The women held Ifeoma's hands, wiping her sweat as she screamed and pushed. Hours passed, but finally a baby's cry pierced the air. "It's a boy!" the midwife shouted. Ifeoma's eyes filled with tears of joy. She barely had time to rest before the pains returned. Another long push, another scream, and another cry. "A second boy!" The women clapped, praising God, but the midwife shook her head. "We are not done. There is still one more." Ifeoma groaned. "I cannot. I have no strength left." "You must," the midwife urged. "One more push. Do not give up now." With the last of her strength, Ifeoma screamed and pushed. The room shook with her cry. Moments later, a third cry filled the room. "A girl," the midwife announced. 3 strong babies, 2 boys and a girl." The women cheered, tears running down their faces. They wrapped the babies in cloth and placed them beside their mother. Ifeoma looked at them, her tears mixing with her sweat. "My children," she whispered, "you are here. You are real. God did not forget me." She held them close, kissing their tiny heads. In that moment, all the pain, all the insults, all the shame melted away. She was no longer the barren woman. She was a mother. The next morning, the news spread quickly through the village. People gathered outside her small room, whispering in shock. 3 children? She gave birth to 3 at once? 2 boys and a girl. Imagine! After her husband said she was barren? Wonders shall never end. Some clapped their hands in joy, others shook their heads in disbelief. But one thing was clear. Ifeoma was no longer to be mocked. She had turned her shame into triumph. Mama Chenier stood proudly at the door, telling everyone who passed, yes, she has triplets. God has answered her prayers. Days turned into weeks. Caring for 3 babies at once was not easy. Ifeoma hardly slept. When one baby stopped crying, another started. Sometimes all 3 cried together, and she would carry them one by one, whispering songs into their ears. Chidera, Chimamanda, Chibuike, she called them softly, naming them with meaning. What God has written, my God will not fail. God is strength. She raised them with every drop of love in her heart, even when she had nothing. Some nights she ate only water and Gary so the babies could have milk, but she did not complain. She looked at their faces and whispered, "You are my crown. You are my victory." Meanwhile, far away in the city, Obinna was planning his engagement. He wore expensive suits, moved with rich friends, and pretended he had no past. When people asked about his ex-wife, he laughed proudly. "She was barren," he told them. "I wasted 5 years with her. Now I will marry a woman who will give me sons." His friends praised him, clapping him on the back. "Yes, you deserve better. You need a family to carry your name." Obinna smiled, never knowing that the very sons he longed for were already alive, far away, in the arms of the woman he had cast aside. One night, as Ifeoma watched her triplets sleeping peacefully, she whispered a promise. "My children, the world mocked me, but you have given me new life. I don't know how we will survive, but I swear I will never give up. One day you will make me proud. One day, the world will see." Her tears fell, but this time they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of hope. For though her life was full of poverty and pain, she now carried within her the greatest treasure of all, her children, and that treasure would change everything. The morning sun rose over the small village where Ifeoma now lived with her children. The triplets were 5 years old, strong and full of life. Their laughter filled the tiny room every day, their little voices chasing away the sadness that once lived in their mother's heart. Chibuke, stop running, Ifeoma called as one of the boys dashed across the room, holding a stick like a sword. You will break something. Mama, I am a warrior, Chibuke shouted with a grin. His twin, Chidera, jumped in front of him, pretending to block the attack. No, I am the warrior. Mama, see me. I am stronger than him. Meanwhile, Chimamanda, the only girl, sat quietly by the mat, hugging a doll her mother had made out of old cloth. She looked up at her brothers and said in her small voice, Both of you are noisy. Mama, they will disturb you again. Ifeoma laughed softly, shaking her head. Leave them, my daughter. Boys will always play rough. One day, they will protect you. Every day was a struggle, but it was also a blessing. Ifeoma worked at the market, washing clothes for people and selling food. She earned just enough to keep the children fed. Sometimes, when the food was not enough, she would go hungry so her children could eat. But whenever she saw their faces, her heart swelled with strength. She thought often of Obinna, but not with love. His face came back to her in flashes, his angry words still ringing in her ears. Barren woman. Useless wife. She had promised herself never to forgive him, never to allow him back into her heart. But Obinna had not forgotten her either. Back in the city, Obinna's life had changed. His business had grown, and his pride had grown even bigger. He drove fancy cars, wore expensive suits, and spoke with arrogance. Everyone around him respected him for his money, but deep inside he still felt the shame of his empty house. He had no child to call his own, no son to carry his name. When people asked about his past, he lied easily. My ex-wife was barren, he said, his voice full of pride. I wasted 5 years on her, but I am done with that. Soon I will marry a real woman. And now that moment had come. Her name was Amaka, a glamorous woman from a wealthy family. She loved the idea of marrying a rich man like Obinna, and she made him feel like the king he always wanted to be. Together, they planned a wedding that would shake the city. One evening, as Obinna sat with his friends at a big table in a hotel lounge, he laughed loudly. I will show everyone that I have moved forward. I will marry Amaka in style. And do you know what will make it sweeter? His friends leaned closer, curious. What? Obinna's eyes glinted with pride. I will invite Ifeoma, that useless woman. I will make her sit and watch me take a real wife. She will see what she lost. She will bow her head in shame. The men laughed, clapping him on the back. You are wicked, Obinna, but you are right. She deserves to see your glory after disgracing you with her empty womb. Obinna smiled, sipping his drink. Yes, she will come, and I will laugh when I see her face. Days later, in her small village, Ifeoma was returning from the stream when she saw a young boy running toward her. He carried a fancy golden envelope in his hand. Auntie Ifeoma, he shouted. A man brought this for you. He said it is important. She frowned and wiped her wet hands on her wrapper before taking it. The envelope was heavy, with shining letters pressed into it. She opened it slowly, her hands trembling. Inside was a card written in bold, beautiful writing. It was an invitation. You are specially invited to the wedding ceremony of Obinna and Amaka. Come and witness the celebration of true love and a new beginning. Her breath caught. She read it again, her eyes burning with tears. At the bottom of the card, written in Obinna's handwriting, were cruel words. Come and see what a real bride looks like. Maybe you will learn. The world around her blurred. She sat on a stone by the roadside, clutching the card tightly. The words stabbed her heart like a knife. After everything he had done, after throwing her away, after calling her barren, he still wanted to mock her. Tears rolled down her face. She whispered, Why, Obinna? Why do you still hunt me? Have I not suffered enough? Her children ran to her, their small feet pattering on the ground. Mama, why are you crying? Chidera asked, holding her hand. She quickly wiped her tears and forced a smile. It is nothing, my son. But Chimamanda climbed onto her lap and touched the invitation. Mama, what is this paper? Why does it make you sad? Ifeoma hugged them tightly, pressing their little heads against her chest. It is nothing you need to worry about. Just know that I love you. You are all that matters. That night, after putting the children to sleep, Ifeoma sat alone by the small oil lamp. She stared at the invitation, anger and pain boiling inside her. "How cruel can he be?" she whispered. "He threw me out, he abandoned me, and now he wants to disgrace me in front of everyone. Does he not fear God?" She felt helpless, but then she remembered the strength she had gained over the years. She was no longer the broken woman who fainted on the roadside. She was a mother now. She was stronger. Still, she had nothing to her name. No fine clothes, no car, no riches. How could she show her face at such a wedding? She would only be mocked again. But God had a plan. A week before the wedding, a man she had once helped in the market came to visit. He was a businessman who had fallen sick years ago, and Ifeoma had given him food even when she had almost nothing herself. Now he was wealthy, and he never forgot her kindness. He arrived at her small house with a driver and 2 men carrying boxes. "Ifeoma," he said warmly, "I heard what your ex-husband is planning. I will not let him disgrace you. You once fed me when you had nothing. Now let me repay you." She looked at him in shock. "Sir, I don't understand." He smiled. "These boxes are filled with clothes and shoes for you and your children, and outside there is a car waiting. You will not walk to that wedding in shame. You will arrive like a queen." Tears filled her eyes. "Why are you doing this for me?" "Because good deeds never die," he replied. "You deserve to be honored, not mocked." When she stepped outside, she saw it. A sleek black Lamborghini parked by the road, shining under the sun. She gasped, covering her mouth. The man bowed slightly. "Madam, this car is yours for that day. Let your enemies see that God lifts the humble." Ifeoma fell to her knees, crying, "Thank you, Lord. You have remembered me." That night she sat with her children. She told them gently, "My darlings, we are going to a special place soon. But remember, no matter what happens, you must walk tall. You are not children of shame. You are children of blessing." The boys smiled proudly, and Chimamanda hugged her mother tightly. "We will make you proud, Mama." Ifeoma kissed their foreheads. "You already have, my loves. You already have." The wedding morning came bright and loud in the city. The hall chosen for the event was the biggest and most expensive in town. Cars lined up the streets as important guests arrived, dressed in colorful lace and fine suits. The sound of drums and trumpets filled the air, while photographers and cameramen moved around, snapping pictures of everything. Inside the decorated hall, flowers covered the stage where the couple would sit. Golden chairs sparkled under bright lights. Guests whispered to each other, admiring the beauty of the place. Everyone knew Obinna wanted this day to be grand, to prove his status and power. Obinna himself stood outside, smiling proudly in his white suit. He shook hands with his rich friends, his chest swelling with pride. "Today is my day," he kept saying. "Today everyone will see that I have moved forward." His bride Amaka was in another room, surrounded by bridesmaids. She wore a shining white gown with diamonds on her neck. She checked herself in the mirror again and again, smiling with satisfaction. "This is how a real wedding should be," she said to her friends. "Not like those poor marriages with nothing to show." The bridesmaids laughed and agreed. Meanwhile, Obinna was busy boasting to his close friends. "You know what will make this day even sweeter?" he said with a sly grin. They leaned closer. "What?" "I invited Ifeoma," he said proudly. "Yes, my ex-wife, the barren woman. She will be here today. I want her to sit and watch me marry a real wife. She will see what she lost, and everyone will laugh at her." His friends burst into laughter. "Obinna, you are truly a man of wisdom. This is revenge. She will regret ever crossing your path." Obinna laughed with them, feeling satisfied. He imagined Ifeoma walking in with her poor clothes, hiding her face in shame. He imagined her tears. He imagined the whispers from the guests. The thought alone made him feel like a king. Far away from the noise of the city, Ifeoma stood in front of her small mirror. She wore a bright yellow gown that hugged her figure gracefully. Her natural beauty shone through, her braided hair styled neatly, her neck carrying a simple but elegant necklace. Her children stood beside her, wearing matching yellow shirts and shorts. Their faces were clean, their shoes shining, their smiles bright. "Mama, do we look fine?" Chidera asked, adjusting his little shirt. Ifeoma bent down, smoothing his collar. "You look more than fine. You look like princes." Chibuke flexed his small arms proudly. "We will protect you today, Mama." Chimamanda held her mother's hand tightly. "Mama, don't cry again. Today you will be happy." Ifeoma's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of pride. She kissed each of them on the forehead. "My treasures, you are my strength. Whatever happens today, remember this. You are not children of shame. You are children of blessing." At that moment, the sound of a car horn came from outside. They stepped out of their small house, and there it was, the black Lamborghini shining in the sunlight. A driver in a neat suit opened the door for them and bowed. "Madam," he said respectfully, "it is time." The children gasped, their eyes wide. "Mama, this car is like the ones in movies," Chidera shouted. Chibuike ran his hand along the shiny surface. "Are we really going to ride in this?" "Yes," Ifeoma said softly, smiling through her tears. "Today, we will ride like royalty." They climbed into the car, the doors closing with a smooth sound. The engine roared and the Lamborghini sped toward the city, drawing stares from everyone along the way. Back at the wedding, the hall was already full. Music played loudly as guests danced and clapped. Photographers moved quickly, capturing every moment. The air was thick with excitement. Obinna walked around, greeting his important guests. He was already smiling like a man who owned the world. "Today," he told himself, "everyone will see that I made the right choice." Suddenly, there was a stir outside. Guests near the entrance began murmuring. Heads turned. A sound unlike any other filled the air. The deep, powerful roar of a luxury engine. "Which car is that?" someone whispered. "It is a Lamborghini," another gasped. "Who could it be?" All eyes turned toward the gate as the sleek black car rolled to a stop. Its doors lifted slowly, drawing gasps of admiration. The photographers rushed forward, their cameras flashing. From inside, Ifeoma stepped out gracefully, dressed in her yellow gown. Her children followed, holding her hands. The sunlight caught their faces, showing their bright smiles and healthy figures. They looked like a picture out of a dream. Gasps filled the hall. Guests whispered loudly. "Is that not Ifeoma? The barren woman? But she has children, 3 of them." The murmurs grew louder, and everyone stood to see clearly. Inside the hall, Obinna froze. His laughter died in his throat. He turned slowly toward the entrance, and when he saw them, his face went pale. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Amaka, still in her bridal room, heard the commotion and rushed out. When she saw Ifeoma walking in confidently with 3 children, her eyes widened in shock. She grabbed Obinna's arm tightly. "Who are they? You told me she was barren." The music stopped. The drums went silent. Every guest stared, waiting to see what would happen next. Ifeoma walked slowly down the red carpet, her children by her side. She did not look down. She did not hide her face. She walked like a queen, her chin lifted, her eyes shining. Each step was a statement. Each smile from her children was proof. And with every step, Obinna's pride began to crumble. The whispers in the hall grew louder. 3 children? So she was not barren after all. They even look like him. God has disgraced him today. Obinna's friends looked at him in confusion. "Obinna, what is this? You said she could not have children." Obinna's hands shook. Sweat ran down his face. He tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. They are not mine. She must have gone to another man." But as the children walked closer, the truth could not be denied. Their eyes, their smiles, even the shape of their faces. They carried Obinna's blood. Guests gasped louder, pointing and whispering. Amaka pulled her hand away from him, her face full of anger. "You lied to me. You told me she was barren. You made me believe she was useless, yet she carries your bloodline? What kind of man are you?" Obinna tried to speak, but no words came out. His world was collapsing in front of him. At that moment, Ifeoma stopped in the center of the hall. She looked around at the sea of faces staring at her, then fixed her eyes on Obinna. Her voice was calm, but it carried power. "Obinna," she said, "you threw me away. You called me barren. You mocked me in front of your family and your friends. You told me I was useless. Yet today, look at what God has given me. Look at the children you never believed I could carry. Gasps filled the hall again. Cameras clicked, capturing every word, every tear shining in her eyes. The children held her hands tighter, standing proudly beside her. The silence in the hall was heavy, waiting for Obinna's response. But he had none. His pride was broken. His plans to disgrace her had turned into his own humiliation, and the wedding that was supposed to be his greatest victory had just become the stage for his downfall. The hall was silent. Even the drummers and singers who had been filling the air with music only moments earlier froze with their hands mid-air. All eyes were on the woman in yellow walking down the red carpet, her triplets holding her hands. Ifeoma's yellow gown glittered under the bright lights. She walked with grace, her chin lifted, her eyes steady. Her children walked proudly beside her, their small feet stepping on the carpet with confidence. They smiled, unaware of the storm around them, but their innocence made the moment even more powerful. The guests whispered, their voices echoing across the large hall. "Is that not Ifeoma, the wife Obinna chased away? She was called barren, was she not? But look at her! 3 children! 3 healthy children!" One woman gasped and grabbed her friend's arm. "Do you not see? The boys look exactly like Obinna. The same eyes, the same nose. He cannot deny it." The whispers turned into gasps as people began to compare the faces of the children to the man standing frozen at the front of the hall. Obinna felt his chest tighten, his legs shook under him, and sweat poured down his face. He tried to smile, but his lips quivered. The sight of the children was like thunder striking his heart. Amaka, his bride, turned sharply to him, her face twisted with anger. She grabbed his arm. "Obinna, what is this? Who are those children? You told me she was barren." Obinna stammered. She is barren. She must have gotten those children from another man." But Amaka's eyes narrowed. "Do not lie to me. Look at them. They are your blood. Everyone can see it." The guests nodded and whispered louder. "Yes, they look like him. There is no denying it. God has shamed him today. After all his boasting, see what has happened." Obinna's friends, who had laughed with him earlier, now stared at him with disgust. One of them whispered, "Obinna, you told us she was barren, but clearly she was not. You deceived everyone." The shame burned him like fire. He tried to speak louder, his voice breaking with desperation. "They are not mine. She is trying to disgrace me. Do not believe her." But as Ifeoma and the children reached the middle of the hall, the truth became too clear to ignore. The triplets stood proudly beside their mother. Chidera looked around curiously, his little chest puffed out. Chibuiki clung to his mother's gown, smiling shyly at the guests. Chimamanda, the girl, looked straight at Obinna, with eyes that mirrored his own. A murmur rose in the crowd. "Ah, that girl's eyes are exactly like his. And that boy's smile, it is Obinna's smile. God has revealed the truth today." Obinna's heart pounded. He felt like the ground would open and swallow him. The very shame he had planned for Ifeoma was now upon him. Ifeoma stopped and faced the hall. Her voice was calm but strong, carrying over the murmurs. "5 years ago," she began, "this man threw me away. He called me barren. He told me I was useless. He let his family mock me, insult me, disgrace me. He cast me out of his house with nothing." Gasps filled the air. Guests leaned forward, eager to hear more. Cameras clicked as reporters captured every word. Ifeoma continued, "I left that house with tears in my eyes and pain in my heart. I had nothing, but God gave me everything. He blessed me with not 1, not 2, but 3 children. And today I stand here not as a barren woman, but as a mother." She held her children closer. "These are my children. They are my proof. They are my pride." The hall erupted. Some clapped, others shouted, "Glory to God!" The sound was deafening. Obinna covered his face with his hand, wishing he could disappear. But Amaka pulled his hand down, her voice sharp and full of anger. "You humiliated me," she spat. "You told me lies. You said she was barren, that she could never carry children. Yet here she stands with 3 children who carry your face. You deceived me, Obinna. How dare you?" Obinna tried to hold her hand. "Amaka, please, listen. She is lying. This is all a trick." But Amaka pushed him away. "Do not touch me. You have disgraced me before everyone." The guests shook their heads, some laughing bitterly. So this was his plan? To shame her? Look how it has turned on him. Yes, God does not sleep. He has been disgraced instead. At that moment, one of the children, Chidera, tugged at Ifeoma's gown and pointed at Obinna. Mama, why is that man looking at us like that? The question was innocent, but it struck Obinna's heart. He turned his face away, ashamed. Ifeoma bent down, stroking her son's head. Do not mind him, my child. We are here for God's glory, not for man's approval. The hall clapped louder, many wiping tears from their eyes. The sight of a woman once mocked, now walking in victory, moved them deeply. The master of ceremony, who had been frozen at his microphone, finally found his voice. He cleared his throat nervously. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our special guest, Madame Ifeoma, and her beautiful children. The crowd clapped loudly, cheering her name. Some stood to their feet, praising her courage. Obinna sank deeper into shame. His plan to laugh at Ifeoma had turned into a nightmare. His new bride was furious, his guests were mocking him, and his ex-wife now stood like a queen in front of everyone. Amaka turned to him again, her eyes blazing. Obinna, answer me now. Are those children yours? Yes or no? The hall went quiet again. All eyes turned to him. Even the reporters pushed forward. Their microphones held out. Obinna stammered, his voice weak. I don't know. Maybe. They look like me, but... His words only made things worse. The crowd erupted in laughter and murmurs. He cannot even deny it. He is finished. What a shameful man. Ifeoma raised her chin higher. She did not need to say more. Her presence alone was enough. But she looked at Obinna one last time, her voice steady. Obinna, the same woman you rejected is the woman God has honored today. You plan to disgrace me, but you have only disgraced yourself. The guests clapped, some shouting, yes. Others shook their heads at Obinna, their respect for him gone. At that moment, Amaka tore off her veil and threw it to the ground. This wedding is a joke, she shouted. I will not marry a liar. I will not tie myself to a man who hides his children and shames women to protect his pride. The hall gasped again. Amaka stormed out, her bridesmaids running after her. Obinna stood frozen, his face pale, his hands trembling. His dream wedding had turned into a public disaster. Ifeoma turned to her children and smiled softly. Come, my darlings. We have shown the world the truth. Let us go. They held her hands tightly as she began to walk away. Cameras flashed, capturing every step. The guests clapped again, chanting her name. As she walked out, her children beamed proudly, their small voices rising above the noise. Mama, you are the best. Mama, we love you. And for the first time in years, Ifeoma felt truly free. The wedding hall was in chaos. Guests were no longer clapping for joy. They were murmuring and pointing fingers. The noise of whispers and gasps filled the air. Cameramen rushed forward, their flashes blinding, trying to capture every moment. At the front of the hall, Obinna stood frozen like a statue. His face was pale, his lips shaking. Sweat rolled down his temples. The plan he had built for months had crumbled in seconds. His bride, Amaka, stood a few feet away, her gown sparkling under the lights, her face dark with anger. Her voice cut through the noise like a knife. Obinna! She shouted, pointing at him with trembling hands. You told me she was barren. You told me she could never have children. So what is this? Who are these children that look exactly like you? The guests fell silent, waiting for his answer. Obinna raised his hands weakly. They are not mine, he stammered. She must have found another man after I sent her away. She is trying to trick everyone. But his words only made things worse. The guests shook their heads. Some laughed bitterly. Does he think we are blind? One man muttered. Those children are his mirror, another whispered. Amaka's eyes flashed with fury. Trick everyone? Obinna, do you take me for a fool? You disgraced her, and now she returns with children that carry your face. And you stand here lying to us all? You are a coward. Her words struck him harder than a slap. He reached out to her. Amaka, please listen. Don't walk away. This wedding... But Amaka pulled back sharply, her voice loud enough for all to hear. This wedding is over. I will not marry a liar. I will not marry a man who cannot stand by the truth. Gasps and shouts rose from the crowd. Cameramen captured the dramatic moment, their flashes bursting like fireworks. Obinna tried to stop her. He stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Amaka, don't leave me like this. This is just a misunderstanding. They are not my children." But Amaka pushed him hard in the chest. "Stay away from me. You brought shame upon me, upon my family, in front of the whole world. I would rather remain single than be chained to a disgrace like you." She tore off her wedding veil and threw it to the ground. Then, with her bridesmaids following in shock, she stormed out of the hall. The heavy doors slammed behind her, echoing loudly. The guests erupted in murmurs again. Some laughed, some shook their heads. The once celebrated groom was now standing alone, abandoned on the very stage he built to show off his pride. Ifeoma, still holding her children's hands, watched the scene with calm eyes. She had not come to fight. She had not come to shout. But the truth had spoken for itself. Her heart was heavy, yet peaceful. One of her sons, Chibuik, tugged at her gown and asked innocently, "Mama, why is that man crying?" Ifeoma bent down and stroked his cheek gently. "Because lies do not last forever, my son. Truth will always win." Her words carried across the hall, and many nodded, whispering, "Indeed, she is right. Truth will always win." Meanwhile, Obinna tried to gather himself. He turned to his guests, his hands raised. "My friends do not believe her. She is bitter because I left her. She wants to ruin my wedding." But his voice was drowned by the crowd's laughter. "Ruin your wedding? You ruined yourself," one woman shouted. "Look at the children. They are yours. Admit it," another yelled. The hall was no longer on his side. His rich friends who once praised him now folded their arms, shaking their heads in disgust. One of them, Chief Okachukwu, stepped forward. "Obinna, you boasted before us that your wife was barren, that you needed a better woman. But today you are the one disgraced. You lied to all of us." Obinna's knees grew weak. He wanted to defend himself, but the words caught in his throat. He could feel his empire of pride crumbling. Reporters swarmed him, shoving microphones in his face. "Mr. Obinna, are these children yours? Why did you divorce your wife if she was pregnant? Did you lie to your friends and your new bride? Sir, do you deny the resemblance?" The flashing lights blinded him. He stumbled backward, covering his face with his hands. "No more questions. Leave me alone." But the reporters pressed harder. "Answer us, sir. The people want the truth." Obinna's voice cracked. "They are not mine. She is lying. Stop asking me." His denial sounded weak, and the crowd booed. Some shouted insults. "You are a disgrace, Obinna. Shame on you. This is the man who laughed at his wife? Look at him now." At the center of it all, Ifeoma stood tall. She held her children close and lifted her chin. She had no need to shout. The world could see the truth. She looked at Obinna one last time, her voice soft but firm. "Obinna, you threw me away when I needed you most. You called me barren, but God blessed me beyond measure. You tried to shame me, but today, you are the one shamed. This is the fruit of your pride." The hall erupted in applause. Some stood to their feet, clapping for her. Others cried, moved by her courage. Obinna sank onto a chair, bearing his face in his hands. The man who had once stood tall in pride now sat broken before everyone. Amaka's parents, who had been seated in the front row, stood up angrily. The father pointed at Obinna. "You have disgraced my daughter. You will hear from us. This marriage is finished." They stormed out as well, leaving him surrounded by whispers and scorn. One old woman in the back shook her head. "What a lesson. Pride goes before a fall. This man wanted to disgrace his wife, but God turned the disgrace back to him." The music that once filled the hall was gone. The decorations, the flowers, the golden chairs, all of it looked useless now. Guests began to leave, their heads shaking, their voices full of gossip. Ifeoma came in glory, and he is left in shame. God does not sleep. This is justice. As the hall emptied, Obinna tried to rise, but his legs felt heavy. He whispered to himself, "How did it come to this? How did I lose everything?" But the truth was clear. His greed, his arrogance, his cruelty, they had destroyed him. Meanwhile, Ifeoma and her children walked out of the hall with dignity. Cameras flashed as the Lamborghini door opened for them. The children climbed in happily, their laughter ringing like victory bells. As she sat down, Ifeoma whispered to herself, "This is not the end. This is just the beginning." And with that, the car drove away, leaving Obinna behind in the ruins of his pride. The once grand wedding hall was almost empty. The flowers still hung on the stage. The chairs were still decorated with ribbons, but the joy had gone. The guests who remained only stayed to gossip and shake their heads at Obinna. He sat alone on the golden chair meant for him and his bride, his head buried in his hands. His white suit, once spotless, was now soaked with sweat. He could still hear the words ringing in his ears. Liar, coward, shameful man. Outside, the sound of the Lamborghini faded as Ifeoma and her children drove away. She had left with dignity, but he was left with disgrace. One of his business partners, Chief Okachukwu, walked up to him. His face was hard, his voice sharp. "Obinna, you deceived us. You told us your wife was barren, yet today we saw the truth with our eyes. How can I trust a man who lies even about his own bloodline?" "Chief, please," Obinna began, but the older man raised his hand to silence him. "No, business is about trust. If you can betray your wife, if you can lie to your friends, then you can betray anyone. From today, I am cutting all ties with you." He turned and walked out without another word. Obinna's mouth went dry. He reached for another guest, a younger businessman. "Brother, you know me. Do not abandon me now." This was only a misunderstanding, but the man pulled his hand away. "It is not a misunderstanding. Everyone saw it. The children are yours. You destroyed your own honor. Who will want to work with a man like you now? Goodbye, Obinna." One by one, his business partners walked out, leaving him surrounded by empty chairs. The empire he had built with pride was already beginning to crumble. Meanwhile, outside the hall, people crowded around Ifeoma. Reporters asked questions, their microphones pointed at her. "Madam Ifeoma, how does it feel to prove your ex-husband wrong in front of everyone? What message do you have for women who are mocked as barren? How did you raise these children alone?" Ifeoma held her children close, her voice calm and steady. "I did not come here to fight or to mock anyone. I came here because I was invited. I only wanted the truth to speak for itself. My children are proof that no man can write the final story of another person's life. Only God can." The crowd clapped and cheered. Her children smiled proudly as cameras flashed around them. For the first time, Ifeoma felt the world on her side. Back in the hall, Obinna's relatives whispered angrily among themselves. His mother, Mama Obinna, who had once laughed at Ifeoma, now looked ashamed. She muttered under her breath, "We mocked that girl, yet she carried the blessings we prayed for." One of the uncles shook his head. "This is what happens when pride blinds a man." He threw away his crown with his own hands. Obinna heard their whispers and shouted, his voice breaking, "Stop talking! All of you, stop talking! You think you are better than me? Leave me alone!" But his relatives only shook their heads in disappointment. Slowly, they too began to leave, leaving him alone on the stage. Later that night, Obinna returned home to his mansion. The house that once felt like a palace now felt like a prison. The silence was loud, pressing against his ears. He threw his suit jacket on the floor and collapsed onto the sofa. He whispered to himself, "How did everything fall apart in one day? How did she return with those children? Why now, God? Why now?" He poured himself a drink, his hands shaking. But no matter how much he drank, the shame did not leave him. He could still see the faces of the guests, the cameras flashing, the sound of their laughter. And worst of all, he could still see the faces of the triplets. Their eyes, their smiles. They were his. He could not deny it any longer. The following week, his downfall became public. Newspapers carried the story. The headlines screamed, "Business tycoon humiliated at his own wedding." "Ex-wife returns with triplets, exposes truth." "Pride turns to shame," the story of Obinna. On television, the clips of Ifeoma's entrance in the Lamborghini played again and again. Her words echoed across the country. "You called me barren, but God blessed me." Meanwhile, Obinna's businesses began to collapse. Investors pulled out, saying they could not risk working with a man whose name was now tied to scandal. His reputation was destroyed. Even the banks refused him loans. In the village, Ifeoma's life changed overnight. People who once mocked her now greeted her with respect. Women brought food to her house saying, "You are a strong woman. You are an inspiration." Men nodded at her in admiration, whispering, "She carried her pain with dignity." Her children ran through the village proudly. "Our mom is the best," they shouted. Everyone laughed and clapped for them. Ifeoma sat outside her small house one evening, watching them play. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. "Lord," she whispered, "you have turned my shame into glory. You have lifted me when I was on the ground. Thank you." But in the city, Obinna was drowning. He called Amaka many times, begging her to forgive him, but she never answered. Her family had already returned the bride price and cut ties with him completely. One evening, he went to visit one of his old business partners, hoping to win him back. He knocked on the man's office door, his voice desperate. "Please, brother, hear me out. Give me one more chance. Do not throw me away." But the man only shook his head. "Obinna, your problem is not business. Your problem is your pride. Until you learn humility, no one will trust you again." Obinna left the office with tears in his eyes. For the first time in his life, he felt truly alone. Back in the village, Ifeoma's children sat around her at night, asking innocent questions. "Mama, why was that man so angry at us?" Chidera asked. "Mama, is he our father?" Chimamanda whispered softly. Ifeoma's heart ached, but she stroked their heads gently. "He is a man who made mistakes. But you, my children, you are not mistakes. You are blessings. Never forget that." The children nodded, smiling again. Days passed, and the gap between Ifeoma and Obinna grew wider. She rose in dignity, while he sank deeper in shame. One evening, after losing yet another business deal, Obinna sat alone in his empty mansion. The silence was heavy. He whispered to himself, "I thought I was building a kingdom, but I was building nothing. I lost everything because I had no patience, no faith, no love." Tears rolled down his face. For the first time, he wished he could turn back time. But time had already shown him the price of pride. The night was quiet in the small village. The moon shone brightly, casting a silver glow over the houses. Inside her little home, Ifeoma sat on the mat with her children. They were laughing together, telling small stories before bed. "Mama," Chibuke said proudly, "when I grow up, I will build you a big house with 10 rooms." "No," Chidera interrupted quickly. "I will build it first. Mine will have 20 rooms and a big gate." Chimamanda giggled softly. "Both of you are noisy. I will buy Mama a golden necklace so everyone will know she's a queen." Ifeoma laughed, hugging them tightly. "You are all my treasures. You don't need to build me anything. Your smiles are more than enough." The children soon fell asleep, their soft breaths filling the room. Ifeoma sat watching them, her heart full. For years she had cried alone, but now she was surrounded by love. She whispered a prayer of thanks. But while peace filled her home, Obinna was drowning in despair. In the city, Obinna's mansion was dark. He sat alone in the living room, his hair messy, his shirt unbuttoned. Bottles of drink lay scattered on the floor. The once proud man looked broken. His businesses had collapsed. His bride had left him. His friends had abandoned him. He could not stop thinking of the triplets. Every night their faces haunted him. He saw himself in them, and it tore him apart. Finally, one night, he whispered, "I must see her. I must beg her. Maybe she will forgive me. Maybe she will let me return." The next morning, he dressed in a simple shirt and trousers, far from the expensive suits he once wore. He got into his car and drove for hours until he reached the village. Ifeoma was sweeping outside her house when she saw a car pull up. Her heart froze when she saw him step out. Obinna, the man who had thrown her away, who had called her barren, who had mocked her before everyone. Her children ran outside, curious. "Mama, who is that man?" Chidera asked. Ifeoma's face hardened. "Go inside," she said gently. "This is not for you." The children obeyed, but they peeked from the window, watching closely. Obinna walked slowly toward her, his head bowed. His voice was low and shaky. "Ifeoma, please, forgive me." Ifeoma stood still, her broom in her hand. Her eyes were cold. "Forgive you? After everything you did, after the years of insults, the shame, the rejection, do you know what it is to sleep hungry with 3 children while the world mocks you? Obinna's eyes filled with tears. He dropped to his knees in the dust. I was blind, Ifeoma. I let pride control me. I let people's words poison me. Please, I have nothing left. I only have regret. Take me back. Let me be a father to my children. Her voice rose, strong and steady. Take you back? When I cried at your feet, did you take me back? When I begged for one more chance, did you hear me? You threw me away like rubbish. Now you want to return because the world has disgraced you? Obinna sobbed loudly, his tears falling into the dust. I know I failed you. I know I hurt you. But please, let me make it right. Give me another chance. Ifeoma shook her head slowly. No, Obinna. You did not just reject me. You rejected God's blessing. You spat on the gift that was growing inside me. You wanted glory, but you lost everything. That door is closed. Her children stepped outside, unable to stay hidden. Chimamanda held her mother's hand. Mama, why is he kneeling? Ifeoma looked at her gently. Because he knows he made a mistake. The boys frowned at Obinna. Chidera asked, Mama, is he our father? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but he is not the kind of father you need. A real father protects, not rejects. The children clung to her, their small faces full of confusion. Obinna reached out to them, crying, My children, please come to me. I am your father. Let me hold you. But the children stepped back, holding tightly to their mother. No, Chibuiki said firmly. You made Mama cry. We don't want you. Obinna broke down completely, wailing like a child. His pride, his wealth, his name, none of it mattered anymore. He had lost the only treasure that truly counted. Neighbors gathered around, watching the scene unfold. Some whispered, This is justice. Others shook their heads in pity. Mama Chinyeri, who had once helped Ifeoma, stepped forward. She looked at Obinna and said, When you had her, you despised her. Now that she has risen, you come crawling. Life has taught you a lesson. Obinna buried his face in his hands, sobbing. Please, Ifeoma, one last chance. Please. Ifeoma's voice was steady, though tears filled her eyes. Obinna, I release you. I will not hold bitterness against you, but I will never take you back. My children and I have moved on. You are not part of our story anymore. Her words were final. She turned, holding her children's hands, and walked into her house. The door closed behind her with a soft thud that sounded louder than thunder in Obinna's ears. Obinna remained on the ground for a long time, crying until his voice broke. Finally, he stood up, weak and defeated. He looked once more at the small house, then turned and walked back to his car. The neighbors shook their heads as he drove away. One old man sighed. Pride has destroyed many men, but today we have seen it with our own eyes. Inside her house, Ifeoma sat with her children. They looked up at her with wide eyes. Mama, Chimamanda asked softly, will he ever come back again? Ifeoma hugged her. Maybe, but even if he does, we will not let him break us. We are stronger now. Chidera smiled and said proudly, Yes, Mama, we are your warriors. Chibuike added, We will always protect you. Ifeoma's heart swelled with love. She kissed each of them on the forehead. You are my crown. You are the reason I am standing. Together, we will shine. The children cheered happily, their voices filling the small room with warmth. That night, as the moonlight bathed the village, Ifeoma stood by the window, watching her children sleep peacefully. She thought of the journey she had walked, from the day she was thrown out in shame, to fainting on the roadside, to carrying her children alone, to standing tall before the world. She whispered softly, Lord, you have turned my tears into triumph. You have shown that no one can bury the one you choose to lift. Thank you. And with a deep breath, she closed the window, her heart finally at peace. Far away in his empty mansion, Obinna sat alone in the dark. The laughter of his ex-wife's children haunted him. The door of forgiveness had closed. He whispered into the silence, I lost everything. I lost them. The house gave no answer. In the village, however, life was full. Ifeoma rose each day with joy, her children running around her, their laughter bright. People no longer called her barren. They called her blessed. She had walked through fire and come out as gold. Her story was no longer one of shame, but of victory.